Sound check. Hey guys, happy Labor Day. We're getting ready to get started here in a little bit under 2 minutes. If you got a question, go ahead and put it in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer that in the order that we get it. So, thank you very much for the questions in advance. So, we'll talk to you in just a little bit. Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. Nathan Thompson with the Wellness Way, Yorkville. Happy Monday, guys. Happy Labor Day if you are tuning in from the United States. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. So, because it is Labor Day, it's going to be a little bit laid back. People have said, why don't you just take the day off? I'm like, well, your health never takes a day off. So, which is one of the reasons why, Labor Day is, I wasn't in the office, but I still put in some work, still got to work out, and still doing a live only because the holiday does not dictate what my priorities are. And this is a priority. Make sure that we're giving people good information and whatnot. So, tonight, going to be a little bit more relaxed. Going to be doing a live question and answer, and so I'll be here as long as I can. I know I do have some things scheduled right after this. So, if you do have a question, please make sure that you put that in the chat. Right now, we're broadcasting live to YouTube, also to Facebook at Dr. Nathan Thompson, and also to Facebook at the Wellness Way Yorkville. So go ahead and if you have a question, put that in. I'll answer in the order that it was received. So live question and answer, yes. And if you are tuning in right now, thank you so much. Let me know where you're watching from as well. And if you are tuning in and you are from the Chicagoland area and you want to work with the Wellness Way approach, and you want to work with me on a one-on-one basis, then one of the things I want you to do is I want you to get registered right now for the inflammation event that's going to be tomorrow. That's Tuesday, September 2nd at 6 o'clock p.m. Yes, this is an in-person event. And so, and it just really helps you to understand the idea of all the different things that we do here in this office. And in fact, when you look at, in fact, this is, if you look at Time Magazine, AARP, and you look at that, they keep talking about over and over again. They keep revisiting this subject about inflammation. And this gets very misconstrued because people say, well, inflammation is good. I'm like, I agree. Inflammation is good. If I sprain my ankle, it needs to get inflamed. It needs to get red, swollen, hot. That is one of the things that's needed in order to bring tissue healing and resolution. And that is actually a very, very good thing. However, we are conditioned to believe that acute inflammation is bad and we got to suppress it. I'm like, no, I wouldn't suppress it at all. The problem is that when you keep repeatedly injuring yourself which leads to a chronic inflammatory response, then that can cause some issues with the tissues breaking down. And in fact, it gets to the point where the body can't overcome those things. And so that's why when I say getting inflammation under control, you need to know what it is, where it's coming from, and what some of the things that you need to be doing. And in fact, people that are carrying a high inflammatory response can have issues when it comes to inability to lose weight. Yes, chronic inflammatory response that's never resolving. Yes, it can lead to cancer. I'll give you a perfect example: esophageal cancer, for example. Problems with your hormones and inability to conceive. This is a man and a woman's problem usually. Issues with thyroid disease, and in fact, most cases of hypothyroidism is actually due to an autoimmune reaction. No, the body's not attacking itself; it's trying to attack and clean up damaged tissue. So you need to know what you're doing to cause it. Chronic joint pain, which is huge when it comes to, number one, alignment, and then number two, also your blood sugars. Type 2 diabetes, this is why people with type 2 diabetes have so many issues with their joints. Autoimmune conditions, if you look at Cleveland Clinic, you look at the Mayo Clinic, they talk about the body attacking itself. And we just come from the perspective saying the immune system's not programmed, it's not designed to attack itself. Maybe it's trying to clean up damaged tissue, the things that you have done to create any kind of tissue damage. And then even when you look at your hormones are messengers, hormones are responders. And in fact, if hormones start to go off, maybe there's a reason why that's happening. In fact, that's why you need to start looking a lot deeper. So go ahead. All you need to do is just go up to our Linktree profiles on all our socials, and then you'll see this come up, the inflammation event. Work with me in person. Currently not working remotely. However, I had to take a little bit of a break from that just because of the number of people that wanted help, and we just got a little bit overwhelmed a little bit. But I may be going back to remote consults. We'll see. If you want that, let me know. But however, if I do go to remote consults, probably the only people I'll be taking on a remote level probably would be men. Okay, it's not that I don't like women or anything like that. However, men, there's a reason why, and so just let me know, because I'm thinking about it. And, so sometimes I need a kick in the pants just to get a little bit of motivation in regards to that. So, the inflammation event, make sure you get registered for it. If you're from the Chicagoland area, for us to work on a one-on-one basis, as well. And so we got a special gift for you at the conclusion of that event. So that's why I would really, really make sure that you get registered for it. The next one's going to be tomorrow night. So get registered for that. And if you register, it only takes you 60 seconds to register for it. Please make sure that you are in fact showing up, because we do a lot of preparation, a lot of planning for your visit to the office for that event. So make sure that you do in fact show up for that event. So live question and answer. So let's see if we can take some of the questions that are starting to stream through about this. So thanks guys for submitting your questions. And so Jack from the Netherlands, that's watching right now on YouTube. I am on OMAD, or 1 meal a day. Should your body handle extra energy sport on one meal, or should I eat extra? And if so, when? Before the sport, in my case, wakeboarding, or eating after? Okay, so 1 meal a day. Okay, so am I a fan of 1 meal a day? It really, really depends. 1 meal a day is just basically eating 1 meal a day is probably the most extreme example, of something that you would call, time restricted eating or intermittent fasting. And in fact, I basically got done over the past month with just eating 1 meal a day. And here's where I think it's good. So if you are really, really dialed in on 1 meal a day, it is a great way in order to restrict your overall energy intake as far as calories and things like that. So that's where I think it's good, and that's why people ask me a lot about intermittent fasting and things like that. However, there's always a however. There's always a kind of a flip side to every single, eating strategy or things like that. And here's where you can kind of run into some issues if you're doing this for a long period of time. Is 1 meal a day. And I always tell people, it's really, really hard. It's really, really hard in order to get your required protein, to get, for example, potassium, and some of your nutrients in by just eating one meal a day. And that's why for a lot of people, if you are in fact eating one meal a day, you really do long term, in order to get the right and required nutrients in, you really do have to eat like an absolute king for that one meal a day. Okay. So, am I a fan of it? Uh, yes, maybe cycling in and out or things like that. And just like I did, I cycled in it for, about 30 days. But man, I also ate like a king during that meal. And it basically was very, very high protein, and also a lot of fiber, and also a lot of veggies and things like that. Um, so I think it can be a good weight loss strategy. People will say, "Oh man, I lost so much weight doing intermittent fasting, and whatnot." And I'm like, well, probably one of the things that you did is you significantly decrease your calorie intake, just because a lot of times people, where they really, really go wrong, or they really, really mess themselves up, is just chronic, snacking and things like that. And in fact, you'd be amazed at how many people just really run themselves sideways by snacking and just not taking into account, all the foods and things like that. So here's something that I would say, because I just had a reel, and it's on Instagram, and it's on Facebook, and it's also on TikTok. And man, some of the carnivore people really just came out, and just, man, it's almost like I attacked their religion. So, because I said, you need fiber. And that just goes without saying, you need fiber. Can you do a carnivore diet? Yes, you can do the carnivore diet. In fact, I said probably the best way to do it is that I would not cycle into a carnivore diet for long term, because here's what your colon needs. Your colon needs bacteria, and your colon needs fiber. And in fact, you can't have one without the other. So, you do need specific bacteria. You feed it fiber, and then one of the things is that those bacteria, you're giving it food in order to produce what's known as short chain fatty acids, and one of the most important ones is actually butyrate. And you do need a high level of butyrate for good colon cell health. And if you don't do that, you're going to start running into some problems, which is why every person who has just swore about the carnivore, really what they're swearing by is they're swearing by just, a short-term benefit of doing that. And have I told people to go carnivore? Yes, I have. But I also said, but this is going to be a short-term approach, not a long-term approach. I don't think it's a good long-term strategy. And so if you're on one meal a day, I think that you can do that for a specific period of time. But one of the ways uh, one of the ways that you can run into some issues, and I'll give you a perfect example, is for example, if you look at how much potassium the body needs per day, and in fact, if you look at potassium, your daily potassium need is going to be 4,000, 4,500 milligrams per day. That is nearly impossible to get that into nutrients if you're only eating one meal per day. So really, really hard in order to do that. And in fact, I just actually picked up some potassium at my office, because I never get enough potassium. And so a lot of times I will take 6, 7, 8 potassium pills just to make sure that I'm getting extra potassium, largely because I'm pretty active, and I sweat a lot. And so I'm always trying to get, things like potassium and salt and things like that into my system, because sometimes I do run into just not feeding myself, because a lot of times, just with the way that I've eaten for a long period of time, I'm not starving, and I'm not like, I got to eat food. My wife, a lot of times, she's like, "I can't believe that you're not hungry." I'm just like, I don't know. I just don't think of food all that much. So that can be one of the issues. So OMAD, if you do that, I probably wouldn't do that long term. And I want you to think of this. If you think of eating not as a punishment, but think of like, I'm trying to get required nutrients into my body. And if you think of it like that, and if you really stick to something like eat meats and veggies, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, no added sugar, keep your intake in order to support exercise, but not body fat. And if you were really eating that way, then it's not uncommon that you could eat a few meals every single day. And if you do that, it just helps in order to get the required nutrients in every single day. So hopefully that answered your questions. Thank you so much, Jack. I appreciate your questions from the Netherlands. Okay. All right, we got another question that's coming in from Pam. Thank you, Pam, for the question. Thank you for watching. I had a bad vertigo attack in June and still have a lot of dizziness. Do I have any ideas? Yes, I do have some ideas in regards to that. Um, one of the things that I would say in especially if you're talking about vertigo and things like that, is a lot of it can be related to the neck. And if you look at the joints within the neck, it's some of the most highly joint awareness that's taking place that is feeding back to the brain as far as where you're at in space. And sometimes when those joints, whether it's the atlas, which is the top bone in the neck, the occiput, C2 in through that area, when that area is not moving correctly, and this will happen so much in people as they get older. And if it doesn't move correctly, it doesn't give great input back to the brain. And a lot of times too, when you're looking at vertigo, things like that, you want to try to figure out, all right, when is it getting triggered? So one of the things that you can do is if you turn your head left and right, and if that makes people really, really dizzy, then usually what that means is that's actually coming from the neck. It can also be coming from the inner ears too. But then also, if you keep the head straight and you then are swiveling the just the shoulders while you keep the head straight, if that makes you dizzy, then that's a good confirmation that's probably coming from the neck and not coming from the inner ears because the head is actually staying straight. So this can be there can be a lot of issues too. And in fact, if people are getting some issues with vertigo, sometimes things can really be they can be irritating the immune system as well. And so if you're getting a lot of dizziness, that's why I always say, get an x-ray done, and you probably need to get a flexion extension view in order to see how things are actually moving. And this is why, joint awareness is so absolutely huge and critical. But, when people aren't taking care of their spine and their nerve system, and you start to see them go into, what you would call the granny posture, where the head's going forward, the upper back's getting really rounded and hunched, that will just cause the upper neck not to move the way that it's supposed to. And that's one of the things you do is you have to start getting those areas to move the way that they're supposed to. And can a chiropractic adjustment help that? Yes, it can. But I love how people think, and I have seen this on social media. They think that every chiropractic adjustment is the same. And I'm like, for some people, we may be doing some different types of traction adjustments. We may do some instrument assisted adjustments known as arthrostim in order to get those bones moving the way that they're supposed to. But also too, depending on where that's coming from, this can be sometimes a really big immune system insult. I've seen it get worse, with the presence of mold, in a person's living environment as well. So there can be a lot of things at play here. But one of the things too is, making sure that the neck is moving the way that it's supposed to in order to give good input back to the brain to let it know where it's at when it comes as far as motion back into the neck as well. Okay. So thank you very much, Pam. I appreciate that question. Hopefully that kind of points you in the right direction. So we got Ida from Facebook. Why are the corners of my mouth sore? Also soreness around my mouth. So the corners of your mouth, why they can be sore. Well, one of the reasons why they can be really, really sore is you want to make sure, in fact, sometimes you'll see people and you'll see like the corners of their mouth start to crack, in which case you would call it like angular cheilitis or something like that. And that can be a real big sign of some type of B vitamin deficiency. This can be a big sign of B vitamin deficiency. And you also want to make sure it's not due to some kind of herpes infection or something like that. But, if you're getting any kind of like, you open your mouth and they crack or something like that, this can be a sign of some kind of B vitamin deficiency. Whether it's thiamine, or whether it's, if you look at, you got B1, B3, B6, B9, B12, all of that. And just remember this, is that B vitamins can't be stored in the body. And so you really do need to be getting them from your diet every single day. And the problem is that people just aren't getting them every single day, or maybe they have blood sugar issues too that are going on. They're just blowing through their thiamine, for example. And those things can actually start to show up within the mouth. And in fact, I remember at one point I had really bad, cracked lips, on the side. I'd open my mouth and they would split open. And that can be due to pretty big deficiencies as well. And I remember in the past, this happened for like 6 years, and this was before, I was a Wellness Way doctor. I remember I had a fluttering eyelid for a long period of time. And, and then finally it just kind of dawned on me. I'm like, man, maybe I'm really deficient in some minerals as far as like potassium and magnesium. And I started dosing that, quite a bit. And in fact, all that went away. So, and that can give you some clues. Just remember this: your skin will give you clues as far as what's happening in different parts of the body, and as far as your oral health too, and your the health of your lips or things like that. And that's why, if you do have unhealthy skin, that's why people are having a lot of skin issues, whether it's eczema or it's acne or something like that. Just remember this: it's a sign that it's almost like your skin is kind of a good reflection of what's happening in different parts of the body. So you have to start looking. In fact, if you look at the Swiss watch principle, if someone is getting a tremendous amount of acne and things like that, then basically what you have to think is there is probably some inflammation around the barrier, because where's most of your immune system sit? And everybody says, oh, it's the gastrointestinal system. I'm like, well, you're kind of right, but tell me why. And then they're like, I don't know. That's what I just heard. Just remember, your body puts a lot of immune cells around the barrier, which can be the gastrointestinal system, the lungs, the skin. And the reason why is that your body's going to put a lot of immune cells to try to protect it whenever it's coming into contact with the body's external environment. So anytime there's an external environment that the body then it's going to into contact with the internal environment of the body, there's going to be a lot of immune cells that are sitting there. And so if there is something in which the barriers are breaking down, then you're giving more of what, the immune system a reason to go after things as it enters in from external to internal environment. And then those immune cells start to get agitated, and then they'll start giving off certain immune system chemicals that will then excite other immune cells around other barriers too, just to say, hey, we're under attack. I want you to be on high alert too. So this is why, if you look at the health of your skin, look at your gastrointestinal system, there are some pretty good tests you can see in order to see, hey, what's going on as far as like your barrier health and things like that. So having healthy barrier health is absolutely incredible. And in fact, if you can get the barriers to get healthy again, this is why when we talk about barrier health, especially gastrointestinal barrier health, this is why this is so important when you are talking about immune responses and things like that. So absolutely, pretty incredible when you start looking at how the body works. And so this is why if you look at this, I would be looking into to see if there's some kind of big deficiency going on without knowing, what your diet looks like, or looking at a gastrointestinal, like a stool test or a food allergy test or something like that. It's very tough in order to see what exactly could be going on. But there is something that you can do, and in fact, sometimes the answer can be just as simple as, start taking more B vitamins, for example, like Wellness B. And these are water soluble too. So it's not like you can take too much of them. It's not like vitamin D, which is a fat soluble vitamin that your body can store, because you can take too much vitamin D. You can take too much vitamin A. You can take too much vitamin K, things like that. It's pretty tough to get too much of it. However, it's really, really tough to get too much vitamin C, too many B vitamins and things like that, only because body just doesn't really store them, which is why if we give people like B12 or something like that, I mean, we're giving them 3, 4, 5,000% of the RDA. And that's why if you look at most RDAs are just woefully inadequate, because it's just to make sure that you're not getting something. Here's a perfect example: iodine. Iodine is really just, your RDA is just to prevent a goiter. But in reality, they know that getting iodine at very, very high levels can actually be very good for people, especially when it comes to soft tissue or protecting the breasts, or women with fibrocystic breasts or things like that. And so that's why a lot of the RDAs are kind of inadequate, because it's just to prevent, a certain condition, for example, vitamin D, rickets, for example. We know that vitamin D is huge when it comes to, the adaptive immune system response. And in fact, when I test people, a lot of them they're just low. They might not even be medically low, but they're just low in general. And I would like to see people's vitamin D levels be at 80 to 90 and not sitting around 30 to 40 or something like that. So this is why this can be very, 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 very important. Okay. All right. So let me make sure that I didn't skip any questions. So we got any other questions? All right. All right. So Jack, who's on one meal a day, got an energy boost after 7 days, no sugar. I'm on OMAD for my extra weight. Okay. So yes. So you can do that. And in fact, if you look at the last reel that I did, and I talked about, take it or leave it when it comes to certain quote unquote diets or things like that. And I love how people, they it's almost like it's not worth doing unless there's a name behind it, like what diet are you doing? And we need to have some kind of category, in order to do that. So um I think that the best diet in general is the no sugar diet that was in fact developed by the Wellness Way. So what is the no sugar? It's not a no carbohydrate diet. In fact, there are plenty of carbs that are in there, but when we talk about a no sugar diet, basically what you are weeding out is you're weeding out your grains, you're weeding out any kind of processed sugar, you are you're weeding out a lot of breads, pastas, rice, and things like that. And if you could put it into very simple terms, they would just be meats and veggies, just meats and veggies, and then avoiding a lot of high sugar fruit. And people get up in arms when I say that. And I'm like, you can have some fruit on there. And they're like, well, didn't God make fruit? I'm like, yes, he did. But he also didn't he didn't cause your diabetes problem. That was man's problem. So when we get rid of a lot of high sugar fruits and things like that, and in fact, I would say berries are always going to be the best. And you should have berries in moderation, and berries are going to be the best. Yes, there's a lot of great nutrients in it. In fact, certain berries are going to be great for kidney health, and they're also going to be high in fiber as well. So it just means the sugar is not absorbed as quickly as in other types of fruits because they're a high fiber type fruit. But if you really, really stick to meats and veggies, meats and veggies, meats and veggies, meats and veggies, and there's a little bit of more nuance that you can do with that too. But man, I tell you what, how many people have come to me, they're like, I can't lose weight. I can't lose weight. I can't lose weight. And then, you put them on a no sugar diet and you give them some rules and some guidelines as far as what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing. And I've seen some men lose 40, 50 pounds in, 6, 7 weeks, doing that. Not all of it's fat, some of it's water weight. Um, but it's just seemingly the people say they can't lose weight. Really, what it is that they're just consuming way too much food and they just don't realize it. So that's why, yeah, you can run into some issues, with that. And that's why, what do I think the best diet is? Well, it is, I would say, the no sugar diet. And in fact, if you go to wellnessway.com, I'll type that in here. If you go to the wellnessway.com and then, if you go to the main page and you type in no sugar, you can actually get tons of resources as far as like what that actually looks like as far as a no sugar diet. In fact, there's a great resource too that goes along with it. You can get this book shipped to your house, and it's like a companion guide that really goes over the quote unquote no sugar diet, and that can be really, really good and really, really beneficial. But when people get really, really like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, and I'm like, I want you to think of meats and veggies. And the reason why people can have so much success with it is that if you're eating veggies, yes, there's a lot of fiber that's involved with it. It's also going to be higher in potassium. It's going to be higher in magnesium, higher in fiber. And also, yes, it's going to be lower in carbohydrates, as well. I really think that we do consume way too many carbohydrates. Holy cow, way too many carbohydrates. And I'm not an anti-carb person. because some people do need extra carbs depending on their type of exercise and their type of workout. I'll give you a perfect example: CrossFit. If you are truly doing the true version of CrossFit, well, for the best exercise performance, getting some carbs in is actually going to help you because it fuels the type of exercise. High intensity exercise is fueled by carbohydrates. And in fact, I remember I did a 6-day fast. Day 4, I tried to do a CrossFit workout, and I just couldn't. It was impossible. Only because I had depleted all of my carbs, stored carbs in the form of glycogen, and it just literally felt like I was just like trying to run in, a foot of water and sand. It was just really, really awful. And I bet if I had added in some very simple carbs, probably my exercise performance would have gone way up, with that. But when you are talking about that, eating meats and veggies, nuts and seeds, a little bit of fruits, a little bit of starch, absolutely no added sugar, which can be in the form of a lot of breads and rice and pastas and cereals, things like that, what people would consider healthy. It's just like, you don't necessarily need it. You should be getting your carbs from primarily um, vegetables, and also maybe a little bit of fruit as well, but you don't need all the carbs from all the processed foods, things like that. So it's not needed. Okay. It's not needed. So thank you very much, Jack. I hope this helped you out quite a bit. Any other questions, guys? If you got any questions, put that in the comments too. So if you are watching, guys, if you're watching, just say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. And it's always interesting, that we'll get people who have followed us for years and years and years, and then finally they'll show up to the office. I've been following you for years. I'm like, where were you at? Why didn't you say hello? And they're like, oh, I didn't want to. So I know there are probably people that just kind of lurk around. And hi, I appreciate you watching us as well. And so too, if we got any people that are from the Chicagoland area and you do want to work with the Wellness Way approach, you want to work with our office on an individual basis, then please make sure this is going to be tomorrow at September 2nd at 6:00 p.m. This is an in-person event. This is the approach to inflammation. This is your ticket into becoming a patient here in this office. And no, I'm not trying to punish you for doing that, but I will tell you this: once you understand the big idea behind what we're doing, then everything else makes a lot of sense, makes perfect sense. And this is why, when I ask people too that, oh my goodness, it's like, is inflammation good or bad? And everyone's like, it's bad. And I'm like, okay, so you sprain your ankle, is that good or bad? And they're like, it's bad. And I'm like, then who told you that it's bad? Because you need that inflammation. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be painful. It's going to be red. It's going to be swollen. But we're taught, try to suppress it, try to suppress it. And this is why, man, I get people up in arms. They're like, do you ever ice? I'm like, no, I don't ice. Why would I want to try to decrease the immune system response for an acute injury? And so, this is why that, but I also say, if you sprained your ankle, you need to have inflammation. Then I also wouldn't keep spraining it over and over and over again, because now what's going to happen is it's never, ever going to heal. So this is why whenever you have inflammation, wherever it's coming from, you need to know where it's coming from, and you need to know what you need to do in order to stop injuring yourself. And this is why you have to look at physical, mental, and chemical. This is the whole idea behind chiropractic, saying body's designed to be healthy, body's designed to be well. And if it isn't, then there is an overabundance of either stressors. And where's that coming from? Either physical stressors, mental stressors, or a lot of chemical stressors that are going on. That's why you need to be really good at being able to differentiate where this is coming from, and then start doing some things that's going to start to prevent you from hurting yourself, and then start the process of repair and healing at that point. So, Vana, thank you so much. Vana's watching right now from Las Vegas. So thank you very much for watching from Las Vegas. I haven't been to Las Vegas in a while, but I have been a couple of times too. So thank you very much for watching from Las Vegas. I don't think that there is a Wellness Way office in Las Vegas. However, probably the closest Wellness Way would be, I want to say, South Jordan, Utah, maybe. So next to Salt Lake City. I think it's just south of Salt Lake City. So appreciate you watching from Las Vegas. So awesome to see so many awesome people that are watching from all these different areas. So far, we've had the Netherlands, Las Vegas. Um, Ida, if you're still watching, let me know where you're watching from too. So um, just let me know. I always like to see where people are watching. And if you're watching the replay right now, just go ahead and let me know where you're watching from too. So just let me know. I always appreciate when people let me know where they're watching from. It's really cool to see the number of people that watch on our live broadcast every single week. Next week, I will be doing a live broadcast. Don't know exactly what I'm going to be talking about. I am in the busy season a little bit as far as lives and things like that, only because two of my kids are in sports right now, and this is just, it's like full on. It's just lots of tournaments, lots of games, football, volleyball. And I love being a dad. I love supporting my kids as much as possible. But yeah, sometimes it does make it a little bit hard to get these live videos or prepare for these live videos. But one of the things I may want to do is I may want to do something in regards to the immune system and the holidays coming up. It's almost like a broken record. I've been saying this for so long. Um, it's. Do you ever see that? If you ever saw that video of the sheep that like got stuck in like in a hole, or got stuck in like a ditch or something, person came along and they reached out and pulled the sheep out because it was stuck face down in a ditch, and then pulled him out, and he just started hopping away and then hopped right back into the ditch and got stuck, all over again. And so this is kind of like, when you talk about the holidays, it's just like been telling people for years. It's like, hey man, make sure that you're doing this. And they're just like, just completely forget and then hop right back into that ditch, only to make themselves really sick, gaining weight, and just not feeling good for such a long period of time. So Kathy, thank you so much for watching from Upper Michigan, from the UP. And you see Dr. Laura at the Wellness Way. Dr. Laura is absolutely awesome. I've talked to Dr. Laura so much, and from the upper PA, or the upper Michigan, Upper Peninsula, I should say. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much again. And if you see Dr. Laura, tell her I said hello. And it's so great that you are watching too. So Chicagoland area, next event coming up is going to be Tuesday, September 2nd, 6 o'clock p.m. All you got to do is just go to our link tree. You'll see it on the comments of this page. You'll see it on all our socials. If you just click on that, this is what it will look like right here. And then you'll be able to see the inflammation event. If you click on this first one, because you'll see it jiggle a little bit. If you click on that, it'll take you to Eventbrite. It'll take you about 60 seconds to register. We'll get a message that you're registered. And in fact, if you do register even tonight, we'll probably be reaching out to you, giving you a call just to confirm your attendance at that event. And then you'll also see some other things too that are on that. I believe the no sugar nutrition guide, I think that's still up there on our link tree. Also, don't forget too, if you want a Mandate Burpee shirt, which was one of the most, over 1,000 of them were sold. And this had to do with the COVID lockdowns when they were, mandating, which is not a law, mandating masks. In fact, I'm in Illinois. And if you've seen our governor, you'll realize why I, had a shirt that said Mandate Burpees, because quite honestly, our governor is obese and probably a good 150 pounds overweight. And you know what? I'm not making light of his situation, but you know what? When someone talks about health and things like that, and is so disingenuous in regards to that, to his own health, then yes, I believe that needs to be made known. So that's why the Mandate Burpee shirt was so popular. But if you go on to, we do have a web, a store from here, and this will actually take you to where you can actually get a shirt, get your size, different colors. We have actually more than one shirt too, and get different colors, and you can get your shirt printed off, and they'll ship it to your house within probably 2 to 3 weeks, because it's printed on demand. So make sure that if you do that, that's just one way that you can support our cause. Is you can support, the fact that we do live videos every single week. It does cost money, for us to be able to do live videos. It does cost money in order to, this streaming platform that we're streaming from costs money to do every single month. So there is an expense with doing live videos. And I always appreciate when people are kind enough just to support our cause too. So thank you guys very much in advance for supporting our cause. I really do appreciate it. I'm always humbled, when people do tune in, ask questions and things like that. So, all right, guys, any more questions? We'll give it maybe a minute or so for questions. And then, I do have a date tonight with my wife to go do a Labor Day feast. I really haven't eaten all that much today. And I'll be eating also with my youngest son, Elias. And if you don't know that story, oh, holy cow, it's what a miracle that I have a 2.5-year-old right now. It really, truly is a miracle. If you ever heard that story, it will absolutely touch your heart. But it's just really awesome and amazing to have 4 kids that are absolutely wonderful, and in great health, and extremely smart, extremely bright. And I might be a little biased there, but it is true. But the thing that I've always wanted for my kids is I want them to be healthy. I want them always to be happy. I want them to know what hard work means. And most importantly, I want them to love the Lord. That's one of the biggest things that I could give them, is that legacy, to not be ashamed about health, to not be ashamed that they're doing the right things, and not to be ashamed about the relationship with Jesus Christ, not to be ashamed about that, and to be a bright, shining light for other people, that they look at their life and they say, I want to know what's different about you. What's different about you? And then you say, well, let me tell you why I'm different. So that's why that's so important. But I want to raise my kids to have very, very healthy self-esteem, which is actually saying big God, little me. But the problem is for a lot of people, it's about little God and big me. And that's where ego actually comes in. So thank you guys very much for letting me do this live broadcast, for tuning in. I appreciate all the questions. I appreciate all the interaction that you did. Thank you guys again so much. I'll be going live next week with a topic. If you got anything with regard to topic or anything like that, or any subjects or anything, just leave them in the comments below, and I'll definitely consider it if we have enough people who want to hear about something in particular, something very, very specific. So if you like this video, make sure you follow our page. Make sure you give us a follow. Share this video with other people too, if you can. And also, thank you guys so much for the support. Thank you so much for registering for the inflammation event coming up tomorrow night. And we'll see you guys very soon. We'll see you guys next week. And as I always say, remember